What's good, guys? My name is Mario. If you guys liked all those clips I added in the beginning of this video, they were all shot in the Sony a7 III. The lens that I used was a size 25mm f2. Everything you guys saw was shot in ISO 10,000 to 12,800 just because we didn't have much lighting, and the picture profile that I used was S-Log2. So as the title states, I'm switching to Sony for one day. Now, I'm not switching to Sony in general. I'm still sticking with my Panasonic cameras for video production, but I just want to see what this camera offers overall. My friend Kevin lent me this camera. It's the Sony a7 III with the side lens, as I mentioned. Yeah, he gave me a good system. Luckily, a great lens as well, fast lens, because we were shooting in low light. So I wanted to see what this camera can do. He gave me a good system to go out and shoot at night. So this was the first time using a Sony camera. I did struggle with the settings and switching from video to photo. There was a lot of things that was complicated, but there was also a lot of good things. So I want to mention that this is all from a first time Sony user experience. So again, there might be things that I might be off on, but just know it's my first time ever grabbing Sony. So I did struggle with settings, menus, and all that. I had my boy Ezra. He also owns a Sony a7 III, so I figured he was a good person to have come on with me so I can use him as a subject. But in worst case, if I got stuck, he was there to help me. So appreciate it, Ezra. And now let's get started. What I liked about Sony and what I didn't like about Sony. So the first thing that I liked about this camera, I guess we'll talk about the Sony a7 III because that's this camera. Not all Sony cameras are the same, but they're the same in this aspect because that's what they're known for, and that is the weight and the size. It is small. It feels like you have nothing in your hands. I use it on the gimbal, and when I was using it with the Crane 2, it felt like I was just grabbing the Crane 2. I felt like there was no camera on it because I'm used to having the S1H or, you know, heavier systems like the GH5. The GH5 is probably not that heavy, but when you pair it with a Sigma lens, it got heavy. This is small and compact. Now, I'm not just gonna talk about mini system and everything. I'm also gonna talk about just grabbing it and shooting. And it's the autofocus as well. The autofocus was fast. I don't use autofocus if you guys know me. I'm S1H. The autofocus is not reliable. The fact that I finally had a camera that shot both good photo and video, but it had reliable autofocus, it was good to have. Now, if you guys didn't know, all the beginning shots, or actually every shot that I'll include throughout the whole video, half of the shots were shot in manual focus and the other half were shot in autofocus. I like having control of the camera, but there is a time and place, and it's good to have autofocus with Sony. That's what they're known for. So at times where you're pushing in on a subject, you know it can stay in focus throughout the whole time, such as myself. If I use a Panasonic camera, there's only so much I can go forward before it goes out of focus. So it was good to have a great autofocus camera, that's for sure. The next thing that I got a joy with the Sony camera was the file sizes. When I started editing all the footage, they was very small. Now again, it is 1080. I shot everything, by the way, at 1080 60 frames per second. So, you know, the files were very small. So, I mean, that was like very easy for me when it came down to editing. Now, the next thing I like about this camera, a lot of Sony users actually talk bad about it, but I guess I've always been a fan of saying it all depends who's grabbing the camera. But now, you can't compare this with Panasonic when it comes down to the Ibis. The Panasonic Ibis kills this camera, but it's not bad. Now, I have a lot of friends that use the Sony a7 III, and I'm about to make fun of them because the Ibis was not bad. It's very stable. If you keep your hand stable, it's not going to be shaky. There's going to be very little jitters here and there. It's not Panasonic level, but it's not bad. I've seen all their footage sometimes from my friends, and sometimes they're shaking. They even slow it down, and you see the wobble. So I got to bash on them because it is not bad. If you know how to use this camera and grab it right, you're going to get some smooth shots, actually. I was shocked. It's not bad. So just know the Ibis and Sony, it is not as bad as people make it seem to be. And the last good thing about this camera was the low light. Sony's known for low light, and it sure delivered. I think this one, the most you can push it to is 12,800 before it falls apart. So that's pretty good. I mean, I don't think you'll ever be in a situation where you're gonna be shooting like that unless you're like me, just going out and having fun. But when you're in production set, you're never gonna hit that. But the fact that you have this option, I mean, yeah, it's gonna look mushy. It's gonna look bad. But I mean, it's not to the point where you can't use the footage. I always say there's a certain level of how far you can push it before you really can't use the footage. Now, I did denoise the footage. You know, I tweaked it. I tried my best to bring it back and soften it and try to give it the best look possible. But it's not bad. It's definitely usable at 12,800. I didn't go anything higher than that, but I think 12,800 in this camera is the most. But you are gonna have to denoise it and whatnot. But low light for at least this Sony, the Sony a7 III, was good to me. Now let's go on to the bads. Notice how I didn't talk any good thing when it came to the menu system or anything. It's because it is confusing. I've been shooting with Nikon, Canon, Panasonic, I'm pretty sure I missed out on another camera, but I've been shooting with a lot of cameras, and this camera is just confusing. For example, I'll tell you guys what I hate about this camera. I mean, again, after a week of use with this camera, I'm sure, you know, you're gonna get the rundown of the whole thing. It's like any camera, you're gonna get the hang of it. But for someone that's just trying to grab this camera and trying to shoot within that first hour, it's not gonna be possible. You definitely gotta learn the system. It's a whole different system. It's not Panasonic or Canon. This one, you got a lot of tweaking, a lot of things to do. So don't expect to get a Sony camera and just go out and shoot if you never touched a Sony camera. You're definitely gonna have to spend some time looking at the settings, adjusting, saving, because there's a lot of things that are just gonna throw you off. I got stuck a lot of times. For example, I'll give you guys a rookie moment that I had that night. I was trying to record the first time of my buddy, and when I was pressing the shutter, it wasn't recording. And I was like, why isn't it recording? He's like, you have to hit the record button. I'm like, I can't find it. Sure enough, it was right here, right by the electronic viewfinder. The next thing I also didn't like about this camera, the Sony a7 III, is the LCD screen. It threw me off. Now we had the white balance at 3200 and it still looked orange. Now I put it in my computer and it didn't look bad, but in the LCD screen, it looked super orange and off. Now we didn't have anything thrown off. I had my boy come check it out and he was like, nah, it looks good. I mean, that's just for the most part, sometimes Sony tends to give you that type of look. That was tripping me out, but once I came into post, it looked a lot better. So the LCD screen kind of throws you off, and the LCD screen is not the greatest. Now the next thing I didn't like about this camera is the picture profiles. Now it's good that they have so many picture profiles to choose from. Sony S-Log, S-Log 2, S-Log 3, and then you go to the right side and there's Gamma. There's like so many different options after that. Like, why can't it just be S-Log 2 and S-Log 3? Like, that's it. They add so much, and it might be a good thing, but at the same time, it's just too complicated. Just give me S-Log 2 and that's it. I don't have to have additional settings to tweak from. Now, if it was just sharpness and little things like that, that's fine, but it has so many other options after that. I'm just like, mind fucking me right now. So I was like, you know what? Just leave it as S-Log 2. I told my friend, and let's just shoot. Now, the next thing I also did not like about this camera is when you're going from photo to video, my friend did tell me you can do custom settings, and I'm aware of that. But if you're just trying to go from photo to video mode, it drags on. So if you're shooting in video S-Log 2 and you try to shoot photos, it's gonna be S-Log 2. That makes no sense. Why can't they do a common sense like Canon and Panasonic when you can just go from photo to video and it's gonna keep those profile settings separate? I don't understand that. I just didn't like that fact, but I mean, again, just custom settings and you'll fix that. Last thing is great in low light, but you know, it looks very mushy. Now, I think any camera looks pretty bad when it comes to a higher ISO, that you're pushing it to its limits. But this one looked very bad. Like, there was no detail. If you were to zoom into the face or anything like that, there was not much detail. But again, if you're just looking at it from a full size, you're not gonna see anything. It's gonna look clean. But yeah, I mean, there was not too much detail. The 1080 60 frames only had 50 megabits. I'm not sure why not many people mention that. So it's not the greatest quality or data in the video, but I mean, it's not bad. You know, it all comes down to the user. If you know how to use this camera, which I know plenty of people that use this camera good, such as Daniel Schiffer. What's the other guy? Peter Lindgren. Those two guys are one of the few that I see that maximize Sony when it comes to color grading, image, and whatnot. So if you just know how to use cameras in general, I mean, you can make this camera look like a beast. So I can't go too much on the negative side with that, but just know it does look mushy regardless at 1080 60 frames per second with this camera. And that's pretty much it, guys. So this is me using Sony for the first time. It was hard, it was difficult. Thankfully, I had Ezra right next to me to help me out if needed, and thankfully he came by, so I had a subject to shoot. But yeah, I mean, overall, I did like it. I liked the experience that I got out of it, meaning it was fun, you know, like Canon and Panasonic and Nikon, they're pretty easy to use. This, you just get kind of excited. You get a different type of feel. Even though it's confusing and I'm hating it at the moment, it's still exciting because you have to learn. So it's like restarting photography and filmmaking. You're just getting that type of rush, that good feeling. You know, with Canon and Panasonic, it's just, let's just shoot. There's not looking into the settings and figuring out, and it's just, there's like a joy to that, you know? So I will be shooting more with Sony going forward. Now, I'm not gonna switch to Sony. I might buy the Sony a7S III, but for production, I'm still sticking with my Panasonic cameras. But this camera definitely has, you know, a place for me, and I'm definitely gonna buy a Sony camera very soon. That was just from a first-time user. Again, if you guys are grabbing this camera for the first time, make sure you guys learn the in and out, set your custom profiles, and do all that, because if not, it's gonna get really confusing real fast, and you do not want to shoot photos in S-Log 2. So just know that. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you guys did, drop it a like, subscribe to this video. If you guys made it this far in the video, appreciate you guys. Peace out. I was really about to press record, like stop recording when I had to press it over there. That is terrible. My mind gets blanked when I'm doing these YouTube videos. Kind of hard, by the way, because you know what? I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.